The Amalfi Coast, without a doubt one of the most beautiful places you can travel to. With jaw-dropping views, unbelievable architecture, delicious food, and amazing and friendly people. It's one of those places that just has to be on your bucket list. But while being amazing in all sorts of ways and being absolutely magnificent, the Amalfi Coast also comes with a catch. It's one of the most expensive places in the world to travel to and comes with a heavy price tag. So today I'm going to answer the big question of, is the Amalfi Coast really worth the hype? Hey guys, welcome back to another video. My name's Shivan and I make videos about travel, lifestyle, and a bit about medical school and my journey to becoming a doctor as well. So if you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, go check it out right now. If you find my videos interesting, if you think there's something you'd enjoy, then smash that subscribe button down below to join me for a lot more videos. So the big question, is the Amalfi Coast really worth the hype? So to answer this question, let me take you back a bit and tell you a short story. A few months ago, I went to Italy and part of this trip included the Amalfi Coast. So a bit of a disclaimer, the main city we visited when I mentioned the Amalfi Coast is Positano. The Amalfi Coast isn't limited to just Positano, it also involves towns like Amalfi Town and Ravello. But Positano is without a shred of a doubt, the jewel of the Amalfi Coast and the place most people picture when they hear the phrase or hear the name. So today I'm going to tell you, was Positano really worth it, and is it really worth it for you to spend your hard-earned money to travel to this city? To answer any question, I like to divide my arguments into pros and cons. Without any further ado, let's get into it and let's try and answer this question for you. So let's start with the pros. Let's understand why we would even think about or why we would consider visiting the Amalfi Coast in the first place. I know that sounds stupid. Looking at just a picture of the Amalfi Coast, you'd be like, why would I not want to visit this place? Well, watch the whole video. The highlights of the Amalfi Coast, as I said earlier, one major highlight is the magnificent views. So whether you're observing these views from the water or from a boat, or whether you're observing it from land or one of the cliff sides of Positano itself or one of the other towns, the views either way will be unbelievable, maybe the best you've ever seen in your life. The colorful buildings, the beautiful white cliffs with green patches merging into the crystal blue water. It's just breathtaking. Along with this, you have an incredibly charming town. Positano was beautiful. The towns are studded with lemons all around, beautiful ceramics, little gift shops, little local shops selling leather and other sort of locally made items, lots of restaurants of course, some cafes, some places selling gelato. Along with the towns, you also have access to beautiful beaches on the Amalfi Coast. Whether you're in the town of Positano, Amalfi Town or Ravello, the beaches are there. You may think that these are not the beautiful sandy beaches that I imagine when I think of a beach. They're filled with pebbles. But let me tell you something, pebbles are not as bad as they seem. Because if you're on a sandy beach, the water is unlikely to be clear in most places. But if you're on a pebbly beach, just few feet into the water is crystal clear. You can see everything around you. It's almost like swimming in a pool, except it's the ocean. Crystal blue water is one of the other advantages of the Amalfi Coast. Then you can do a boat trip around the entirety of the coast. You're not just limited to one town. If you visit Positano or if you visit one of the other towns, you don't have to stay there. One amazing thing you can do is hop from one town to the other, all in a day on a boat tour that you can book very easily. And an amazing thing that you absolutely can't miss when you come to the Amalfi Coast is a day trip to the Isle of Capri. Capri was one of the most beautiful places I visited in my life. The towering white cliffs merging into the clouds with birds flying up high, it was heavenly. One of the most incredible sort of views or sceneries or landscapes that I've seen in my life. Obviously the Faraglioni rocks, which are these amazing towering sort of rock formations in the water. The landscape is just something else, and then when you get onto the island, it's just a different gravy. It's beautiful, charming Italian streets with designer shops, and then again amazing food, amazing gelato, pizza, pasta, all of that. And on your way to Capri, you can even make a stop in the Blue Grotto, which is one of those places that you just have to visit before you die. I mean, it's this little tiny cave with strikingly blue water because of the way the sunlight hits the water. It's, again, another heavenly experience. So those are just a few of the highlights and few of the advantages or reasons to visit the Amalfi Coast. I mean, if I had to sit and talk about that, I could go on for much longer. But we don't have all day. Those are the main highlights of visiting the Amalfi Coast. Now, what are some reasons that you do not want to visit the Amalfi Coast? I know that sounds crazy, but there are a few. So, one of the major downsides that I've covered earlier is that it's really, really expensive. Staying in Positano will cost you hundreds of pounds, euros, or dollars per night. That's a lot of money. So, if you're looking to go on a luxury trip, that may be par for the course. But if you're traveling on any sort of a budget, that's definitely going to hurt. And then on top of that, everything from food to shopping will be expensive when you're in a city or a town like Positano. When we went to Italy, we visited Positano, but we didn't actually stay the night there. We stayed a nearby city or coastal city called Sorrento. Trust me, some of the same products, like identical products, were double or more in Positano compared to Sorrento. So Positano is super expensive. Now, I've not been to Amalfi down in Ravello, so I can't comment on what the prices will be like there. Since Positano is the jewel of the Amalfi Coast, that's the one I'm mainly referring to. Now, in addition to the hefty price tag, the Amalfi Coast is also really, really touristy. Especially, again, Positano. Very, very touristy. It's just become such a hype destination that people from all around the world want to visit it. A place being touristy is not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that it's an amazing place that people want to visit. But sometimes it can get really crowded and that can take away from the charm of the place a bit. Now, if you go slightly off season, it might be a bit nicer, a bit emptier. Not that it'll ever be completely empty, but it may be a bit emptier. Like we went in April and it was more empty, but the weather wasn't such that you can swim in the ocean. So if you go around May time or September time, it should be better. But yeah, June, July, August, it's going to be so crowded, there'll be no space to walk on the narrow streets. On top of the streets being narrow and packed, it's also a super hilly destination, especially Positano. There's so many stairs, so if you're slightly old, you have any knee injuries, or you're traveling with really small kids, it may be a difficult place to travel to. You can't access most places with cars because the streets are so narrow. You either walk or you take a scooter or something like that. Not to say that's a reason not to visit it. I enjoy the adventure of having to climb lots of stairs or to climb up the uphill streets, but that's just something to keep in mind. And then each town itself is actually quite small. There's not that much to do, so it's not a place to spend more than a couple of days in, I'd say. I mean, of course, everyone has their own individual experiences. Again, if you have an infinite budget, you could stay here for a week. That's fine, but realistically, if you're traveling on a budget, there's not more to do than a couple of days. So that's a few of the catches of traveling to the Amalfi Coast, along with the benefits. What's the overall evaluation? I'd say, is the Amalfi Coast worth the hype? My answer would be yes, it is worth the hype. Does that mean that you have to absolutely empty your bank account when traveling here? No, absolutely not. Now, I'm going to give you two scenarios. One, you're a traveler who's expecting a luxury holiday, and therefore you're willing to dish out how much ever it takes to completely enjoy Positano and the Amalfi Coast. Then budget shouldn't be an issue for you because you're ready for it. You're ready for this to be an expensive holiday, to spend a lot of money per night on accommodation, and that's fine. Do that, you'll enjoy your trip, and of course, once in Positano, you can make trips to other places nearby. Now, if you are traveling on somewhat of a budget and you want to save some money while also experiencing the beauty of Italy's Amalfi Coast, the solution is maybe don't stay in the Amalfi Coast. So the Amalfi Coast is very accessible from other cities by ferry, such as Naples and Sorrento. Now, Naples is a bit far off, and Naples is not exactly the coastal, dreamy destination you'd think of. It's a packed, busy, chaotic city. But you can stay in a city like Sorrento, which is not technically on the Amalfi Coast, but it's just around the corner, literally just around the corner. It's almost as beautiful as parts of the Amalfi Coast. Of course, it's not that photo frame Positano image, it's not the exact same thing like that, but it's nevertheless still very, very beautiful. It's a slightly bigger city than Positano, not as uphill, downhill, some big streets. It's a city that's all about lemons, so you get that full charm, that full vibe of the Amalfi Coast, while still having really easy access to Positano, Capri, and then if you want, Amalfi Town and Ravello as well. You can get to any of these destinations by ferry, by private boat tour, or by bus, except Capri of course because it's an island, so you can't get there by bus. So both these situations make the Amalfi Coast completely worth it. You don't have to really strain your budget when going to the Amalfi Coast. Of course, it's going to be a bit expensive, but at the same time, you can travel to it sensibly while not spending too much money and still having the experience that you want to have. Taking a day trip to Positano allows you to truly experience the charm of the place. Like I said, it's a small town and it's not far from these other destinations. So by all means, take a day trip if you don't want to spend the night there and spend a lot of money on a hotel. If we put budget and all these other things aside, is the Amalfi Coast worth it? Completely. I'd also recommend traveling in shoulder season, so try to not travel when most people are going there. That'll allow you to have the place a bit more to yourself. Again, like I said, you'll never have it completely to yourself, but having a bit more room to sort of move around. If you travel in shoulder season, if you're on a budget, then if you stay outside the city of Positano and take a day trip there, or if you're not on a budget, you stay in Positano. In any of these three scenarios, the Amalfi Coast will be worth it. So that's the wrap, and that's my judgment on if the Amalfi Coast is worth the hype. Yes, it is. I hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you some insight into traveling to the Amalfi Coast. If you're planning a trip to Positano, Amalfi Town, Ravello, Sorrento, any one of these cities, I hope this video helped you out a bit. If you have any questions about anything that I can help you with, drop a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Share the video with anyone who's planning a trip here as well. If you enjoyed this, then drop a like down below and don't forget to smash that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.